Hey y'all,
What's going on, guys?
I'm Jay,
And I'm Chris the Bird Nerd.
and we
We
are
are the
the
Bird
Bird Brains.
Brains.
Cheers.
It's a late evening, Jay. Hopefully, you got something good in there.
Yeah, I got some sleepy time tea, so I didn't, it's
I'll,
gonna
I'll
be
try
a
my best
real
to
late
keep you
evening.
awake.
Yeah, there you go. Again, I just, I feel like a professional podcaster if I drink the tea. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about to go narrate a Disney movie or something, like March of the Penguins or something like that.
There you go. And a huge shout out. We've had quite a few Bird Brains purchase a couple mugs from us. So love to keep that trend going. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
we could
my
do something at the end of this podcast, Jay, of another mug
I,
giveaway.
I was actually going to surprise you. I have something else to give away.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm going to surprise you at the end too, actually. I'm going to keep
Okay.
it a secret. But I
I'm
found out
excited.
yesterday I have something to surprise you as well. So, yeah,
Sweet.
and so our buddy Jacob, great listener Jacob down in Texas, he bought a Bird Nerd Polo,
Yes.
which I didn't
Yes.
even know we could do those. I had to go look on the site and be like, oh, wow, we can do those.
You know what the funny thing is, Jay?
It
I
looks
did that
good.
exact same thing because I like polos. I'm usually always wearing
Mhm.
polos if it's like casual day at work or whatnot. And I am 100% going to be buying me a Bird Brains polo for sure.
Yeah, I need to get on there and get myself some more stuff. And you know, I don't the I don't have any good birthdays or like I don't have I need an occasion to gift people stuff, and I don't have any good ones coming up soon. But I did give my daughter. I had a Diamond Dove hatch over the weekend, and I was letting my daughter hold it today, and she said, "Daddy, one day for my birthday, can I have one of these?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can have one right now." It's like this is your dove.
Nice.
And she got all excited. But yeah, no, I need excuses to give people merch.
Right? Yeah. I
If you're one of my friends or family and you're listening to this and you feel like I forgot about you, please remind me.
yeah, likewise.
Yeah. All right. So, big news in the podcast family here. The bird exchange that we've been talking about was completed today.
Finally happened. Dream come true.
Mhm.
First time I've ever shipped a bird through the mail across state lines. So you're the chosen
I,
one, Jay.
so I don't know how many birds I've shipped. It's probably about 100 over the years. Um, if you count receiving and sending, it's more than that, I guess. But this is the first time where I was like kind of bummed at the end because I didn't get to see you open the boxes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I'm used to like, even if we're not talking, like I can go watch your video and see what you're up to. And it's like I kind of wanted the unboxing video, and I didn't think of that until you already said like, "Yeah, I got them all out. They're great." And I was kind of like, "Should have told him to film that," you know?
Yeah, and actually I know I felt bad about that. And I told you yesterday, I was like, man, today's like my craziest day of the week for work. And so it was bolt to the post office, pick up the boxes, get the birds in their cage, take the kids to school, and go straight to work. It was just one of those crazy mornings, and I just got off late tonight. It's dark by the time I'm getting home today, so it just was a rough day. But yes, I agree, and I will be posting. Uh, so you guys will see it next week. The videos that Jay or the birds that Jay sent me, and super excited about him. He's got an awesome selection of birds that he sent my way, and some new ones that I've never ever owned before that I'm really excited about, and I think it'll be good. So
Yeah, and I've already dropped some teasers on the Instagram, but I'll be posting back into a species of birds that I haven't had for a while and have been talking about needing to get back into.
yeah,
And then also, I'll do a little spoiler here: a bork that can live with finches. So a non felonious bork is
if
exciting.
if something happens, Jay, and this Bork decides to join your Bork 101 club and be mean to the rest of your finches, I've got to question a few things that go on in your aviary. That's all.
They're
But
just like my books are just gangster. And it is, I just thought about it. Maybe I'm making a mistake. So where my quarantine cages are is right across the hall, kind of from my Bork. So they can definitely
oh
see,
no,
and I put the Bork in the highest cage, so they can definitely see each other and they can definitely talk. So there, I guess there is a chance they could be like, hey,
no.
hey,
Well,
don't let those finches, you know.
fingers crossed. It did come. It did come from the aviary. It's been in its entire life. It's a young Bork. It's only about
Mhm.
seven, probably 6 to 7 months old. Um, but it's lived in the mixed aviary its entire life. Was born and raised with finches. So hopefully it'll be okay.
Should be good. And it was real sweet when I was handling it, like to scat it today, which we need to do a podcast
Yes.
specifically on quarantine soon. But
Yes.
look, I know all my birds are healthy. I know all Chris's birds are healthy. We're both still quarantining. Please quarantine your
Absolutely.
birds.
Yep.
And if you're wondering, is he talking to me? Yes, you specifically. You on the
Yep.
couch. I'm talking to you.
Yep. Keep them
Um,
separate. Treat them, and and this isn't just a 1 or 2 day process. I know this isn't our topic today, but a great feed or a plug, Jay. But yeah, make sure you quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks at least, right? Make sure that sometimes the birds do have an illness, and we're shipping them. So when you ship them across the country, that's stressful for the birds. And when they get stressed, their immune system goes down, and they can pick up diseases, things like that, and along the travel. So yeah, 100% quarantine your birds, treat them, make sure that they're healthy before you introduce them to your flock. Even when you're getting them from a breeder that and they've got healthy birds, still take that extra caution.
Yeah, I mean, and like you, right? I trust you as much as I would trust anyone on earth. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, you could handle my birds. I'm not worried
Yeah.
about it. But still, it is a basic, it's just like when your kids go to daycare and then everybody in the house gets sick at the beginning of the school year, right?
Yeah.
It's everybody can be healthy. You mix everybody together and there's different bugs and fun stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but that leads us to today's topic, right? So we both got to unload a bunch of birds this morning, and we were talking just now about who's who and kind of giving each other the rundown. And the way we're telling these birds apart, besides the obvious way of, well, this bird looks different than this bird, is bands.
Yes.
And some
And
species look the same, right?
yeah, yeah. I was going to say, we sent you a few species that, without the expert eye, they're incredibly hard to tell genders, and impossible to tell bloodlines, right? Unless you have bands. And I noticed your bands that you had on your birds you sent me today, Jay, are completely different than the bands that I had on my birds that I sent you. And I have different types of bands for different species of birds, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think I
and
saw four different bands in the 10 birds you sent me.
yeah, yep, got quite a few different bands. You've got the really small finches that I have specific bands for. You've got your medium range of finches, which are, your zebra finches, Gouldian finches. I've got a couple different types of bands for them actually, and sometimes, it's playing with the flavor of the year or the flavor of the band. I want to try something new, but it's all the same process, right? They're color coded. Some of them have numbers on them, things like that. But yeah, we can get into more detail on that. But yeah, lots of options out there and different styles of bands to use.
Right. So I guess let's start with the basics, right? So bands, when we talk about a bird band, maybe the right analogy is like a bracelet, right? So on their leg, you'll see it, and not all birds have them. Obviously, they're not born with them, right? So some human has to put them on. Um, they'll have a bracelet on either one or both legs, and usually they'll be colored, but not always. Some are metal, some are just plain metal colored. Um, and then they'll either have numbers, letters, a combination of, or just a color. And everybody has their own system. Like we were explaining each other's systems, right? The
Yeah.
Every breeder typically has kind of their own system, with the exception of, so the National Finch Society does put out like a band for the year, and you can order them
Yes.
and get custom bands. I um I actually have not up until this point used metal bands. However, I did order last year from I think it's called American Bird Banding Company, the Javieri custom bands. So
Oh, nice.
I do have some metal bands, and like those
Oh,
Gouldians I told you about in the nest, they're going to be the first ones. And it says TJMA, so it's the Javieri Mobile, Alabama, and then a number.
I love
So
that. Are they
excited.
open banded?
They are closed, so I'm
They are
waiting for
closed.
day
Okay.
12, and then we're going to slip the bands on. So that's into the next part, right? So
Yes.
there's several different styles of band, but as a general rule, you have what's called closed bands and open bands. Closed bands means they get put on the bird when it's little, like for finches, they usually do it day 12. And then as the bird grows, the bird is too big to then have that band come off again.
Yep.
And so those bands, unless you cut them off with like a special clippers or in the case of a big parrot, maybe even like a Dremel tool, those bands are usually permanent for life. Like Einstein has a band that's a closed band that to take it off of him, I would have to like almost sedate him because it
Yeah.
would require power tool use. And then you have open bands, which is what I use for finches until these metal ones I just talked about. And those ones they're usually made of plastic. I've seen them that are made of metal, but they're usually made of plastic and they can be applied at any point in the bird's life. They're usually pretty easy to remove also. Do you ever I think I saw almost all yours are closed, right? Do you use open ones or are some of yours flexible? Are those round ones
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
flexible?
So I don't use any closed bands. And for those out there who have never seen a closed band before, just like what Jay said, but there's no opening. There's no way you can open them. When we say a split band or an open band, that means like with a tool or instrument, you can open that band and fit it up around the leg, right? The closed band, there's no slit. There's no way you can open it. Like you said, Jay, you got to put it on with our chick. I don't do any closed bands. I've actually never done any closed bands, but I
Okay.
do have, and I'm
So one of those
cautious.
birds, does your brother
To,
do them? Because I
no,
was gonna
no,
say
that
maybe
bird
I
that we
just thought it
got,
was a.
I think there is. Let me see.
I thought one of the Gouldians had
One of the
a closed band.
Gouldians. It is a closed band. That's my brother's band or my brother's bird, but he did not raise it. He got it from California. Last year we went out to the bird show.
Okay.
But yeah, he doesn't close band either. And I would like to close band, but it's like you said, if you miss that small window of day 10 through 13, depending on your species of bird, you're done, right? You can't put a closed band on them because their feet are now too big, and you can't slide it up over their toes or through their toes. So yeah, most of mine or all of mine are split band or open band. I do use a couple of the aluminum bands. I try to be
Yeah, because the
cautious with
Bork
them.
has the aluminum band.
Uh-huh. I try to be cautious with them. Some of your finch species, if you close that aluminum band too tight when they get older, it can cut into their toe, into their legs. I've had a couple canaries in the past that breeders closed that band too tight and it started cutting into their leg, and I had to remove that band. The Bork ones are really nice because they kind of have like two flat ends that you push together, so you
Yeah, I
can't
saw
you
that.
can't you can't like over tighten it when you squeeze them all together, which is really nice, and I like that quite a bit. Yeah, so my Borks, I put the aluminum bands on. Then all of my smaller finches below the Borks, I usually do a variety of plastic bands. Some of them are numbered, some of them are just plain. Mostly my system is based off of coloring, and that's how I tell, genetics, bloodlines, male or female, etc.
Yeah, so let's get into systems. So, I guess I'll say mine. So I have basically two systems. So I have a color for that year. So like, and I still have some left over from last year, and I'll use those too. But so like last year I did, and you have a bunch of them now. I did green, and then this year's babies are going to be orange bands, and then next year I'll pick some other color. And then I also dictate like, so I try to have two pair of every species. In some species, I have way more than two pair, but
Yeah.
in the pair where in the species where I have two pair, I'll put one pair will be the right leg pair and one pair will be the left leg pair. So if I have a baby from last year with a green band on the right leg, I know it came from the right leg pair. And if I have a baby from the left leg pair, green band on the left leg. And that's how I do that. And then I also, when I buy a bird, because it's not one I produce, I'll just put either a red or a pink band on its leg, signify male or female, or my best guess sometimes. And then designate which leg also. So if I know, like for instance, if I already had a pair of shaft tails and I got a new pair of shaft tails, the new pair would become the opposite leg of the other one,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And that's how I differentiate who's who. And then in species where I have more, I might do, I'll have a pair that'll be the right leg pair, I'll have a pair that'll be the left leg pair, and then I'll have a pair that'll be the both leg pair, if
Nice.
that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What do
like
you
that.
do?
I actually really like the year or color of the year. That's something maybe I'll look into adopting. I think that's really nice. Mine's a little bit more simple, but along the same lines, similar lines. So I usually do my left leg is I'll put a color band on according to the parents or the pair that those chicks came from, and I usually stem it from the males. I don't know why, but I usually have. So if I usually go off of the male's color, and then I do have record keeping books, so I do know who that female is to tie in.
Mhm.
But any babies from the same clutch, they'll receive the same color of band, or really from that same pair. They'll receive the same color band on their left leg, and then on their right leg is when I'll just put a different color band on there so that I can tell apart male and female with some of the species that are really hard to sex and determine genders. So that's what I do for all of my finches. I do on my Borks with those metal bands, same color system, but I do have numbers on there, and the numbers just represent the number of chicks from that clutch. Um, I think yours, Jay, had a number. I think yours is the fourth chick from that pair that came. I think it's got a number four on its band or on its leg. But
I
yeah,
didn't
it's got
read that hard. I wasn't trying to stress it out, but yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, chick or family on left leg, male, female, right leg, different colors. And then I still keep the record books as well. And the record books really tell me the age of the birds, right? So I can go back and say, okay, this zebra finch that's got blue on the right and a white on the left. And I go back to my record and say, okay, that was in 2022 is when that chick had, when that bird hatched. And so that's where I kind of get the year from. But I like the color idea. That'd be way easier to determine when they hatched.
Right, and it's just real easy for me at first glance in the aviary, especially
Yeah,
when I'm pulling chicks out to separate them out to sell them or move them on or trade them or whatever I'm going to do.
right.
I can look quickly and go, "Oh, I missed one. There's a green band out flying around out there." But yeah, and then mine do have numbers on them, but they mean nothing. There's no significance. I mean, I'll write that down. Like I've got a record that I keep too, and I'll write down but like the way my record looks is like blue band right leg, and then I'll put the number, but I couldn't tell you what number any of my birds are. That it just is.
Yeah,
In fact, some of them have the same number, I'm sure, because so I buy my open bands, and we can talk about this. And I don't like giving out free ads, but if anyone from Jed's is listening, send us free bands. So I
yeah,
just
yeah.
use Jed's Bird Supply for my
Hmm.
bands. They have open bands, they're plastic. They come with a little divider to help put them on the bird. They're very easy to use and they're very inexpensive, but
Yes.
and they have like 2.5 millimeter, which is the size I use for like African finches. They have a 3 millimeter. That's what I use for like Gouldians and zebra finches. They have a 4 millimeter. That's what I use for doves, and then they have a 5 millimeter. That's what I use for button quail. So like if I in the average year I fledge just over 100 chicks. So I ordered and I had a few bands left from last year, so I ordered 100 new bands. but
Hmm.
in certain sizes, and then they have numbers. Their numbers go up to 36. So I know in the 3 millimeter bands, 1 through 12, I got two sets of 1 through 12. So I know that there are
Yeah.
going to be at least 24 birds, that I'm going to repeat a number
Right.
with another bird.
Yeah. I like that. And I've ordered bands from Jeds as well. I like the bands. I've gotten bands from LadyGooleyandFinch.com. They've sold
Hmm.
bands before. I've gotten some from them in the past. If you want a cheap option that works well for your finches, your zebras, your Gouldian finches, shaft tails, um, I just go to Walmart and they have the little plastic beads that it's like it's in the crafts aisle, right? And they have all different colors, and it's where you can like make designs and then you iron them together, you
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And they're perfect size. So I get those. That's a cheap option.
Okay.
You can get like
So
500
that's
of
what
them for
those
like
little
five
round
bucks.
things are?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Ah,
And
I was like, I've
and I
never
just
seen these before.
I just grab them and because they are closed all the way around. I just cut them open. I just put them on a pair of scissors and cut it open. They open up really easy. And then I just use the same tool that you get from Jeds.com, or all the other banding tools. I just use that same tool and pop them
Mhm.
onto the legs. But that's a cheap option. So if you don't want, and the bands aren't that expensive, but if you want to get multiple different colors, if you got a lot of birds, then it can add up. Usually it's like I don't know, $2.50 or $3 for a set of 12 bands. But if you get in six different colors or five different colors, it adds up plus shipping. So, there's a $5
No,
option at
that's
Walmart for 500 different colors.
I love the DIY aspect of that too. And do you ever use reverse opening tweezers with your bands at all?
I, I don't. My brother has before, but I've never used it.
Yeah. So I've got two sets of those. I get them off Amazon, and what reverse opening tweezers are when you press down on the tweezer instead of closing tighter, it
Hmm.
opens. So you can I use them a lot to take off a band. Like if I guess
Yeah.
sex wrong, like I put female and then I see it singing, I'm like, oops. So you slide it kind of between their leg and the band, and then you can open the band and slide it off.
Yeah.
So I think I got a two pack on Amazon for $8 of these reverse opening tweezers. They work great for that.
Yeah.
Now, there are some risks with bands.
Yes.
Before everyone runs out and just throws bands all over all their birds and looks like Mr. T out there, um, they can get snagged on things. And in fact,
Yes.
at one point in my life, I had a one-legged shaft tail that somebody else had put a metal band on that, like you talked about earlier, was either the wrong size or a lot of old metal bands were not rounded on the ends, which the
Yes.
ones I just got from American Bird Bands are like almost an oval from the side view. They look like they're safe, but um, they can get snagged on things and they can break a bird's leg pretty easily. Um,
Yeah.
they're also they can be heavy. So that's you think, oh, this doesn't weigh anything in your hand, but if a bird only weighs, 9, 10 grams and you put 2 grams of band on them, well, that's, 20% the weight of the bird. So something to consider.
It's
That's
like you
another big
carrying around
advantage
a
to plastic.
It's like you're carrying around a 25-pound backpack, if you weigh 200 pounds. So,
Or like they used to do with the chain gang, right? Like the weight and the ball.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So just think about that before you just slap 20 bands on a bird and you know exactly who it is. It's like, do I really need to do it? And I would
yeah,
also say, like, it's good for record keeping, keeping track of it. But like, if you're a person that has, just a couple pairs of finches or a pair of finches, you don't need to ban your birds. You probably know who everybody is just by looking
right.
anyway.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and um, I would say, the bands do come in handy, especially when you do buy them off of different breeders. That helps me, be able to identify them for record keeping. So I would say that's of importance. You already mentioned the size of bands, Jay. I would say that's the other important piece of banding your birds. I've seen both ends of the world. Bands that are too small and it cuts into the legs or starts cutting off circulation. Your plastic bands are a little bit more forgiving. Your aluminum bands aren't, right? Once the birds hit that max point, there's not a lot of wiggle room in some of those metal bands. But I've also seen bands too big for birds, and they either fall off or they're just big enough that they fit down over their toes, and it's usually their back toe. They close it off, right?
And it's like
So
it's
now,
handcuffed. Yeah.
right, and then it, and then that toe starts cutting into the band, or starts getting sores from them walking on their toe because they can't get it out of the band. So the right size is important. Make sure here's our homework. Here's our sign, right? Make sure you do your homework and get
I
the
really am gonna make a laminated sign and
we,
just
we need to, man. But yeah, I think
yeah.
I've seen damage happen to birds on both ends of the spectrum. Bands too big, bands too small. So, but I would say I think bands are very important for keeping track of bloodlines, genetics, helping breeders know how old the birds are, where they came from, especially if you're selling them. And I think the closed bands are an awesome option and are great, especially because like the NFSS bands, they have the year that those birds are born, so
Mhm.
for fact that okay, this is how old the bird is, unless the breeder had old bands that he wanted to use, or
And
newer bands
I
that
don't
hadn't.
even think I think NF if NFS is it NFSS? I think so. It's the
Yeah,
National Finch and Smallbill Society. If they find out that you're misbanding birds,
yeah,
I think yeah, you're in trouble. So I think
you'd be in
anybody
trouble.
that cares enough to do it that way is probably doing it right. I
Yeah,
trust the bands.
it's time consuming, and but then you also run into the risk with some of your more delicate species that don't like nest checks. That's difficult to do, right? More times than not, I would err on the side of don't
Mhm.
mess with the nest. Wait till the chicks come out, and you can give them an open band, unless they're being fostered by society finches that usually don't care if you're doing nest checks, things like that.
Yeah.
But it's so there's some positives to the closed bands. There's some negatives to it. There's positives to the open bands. There's negatives to it as far as sizing goes, and some of the potential harms or damages that could occur with your bird's legs
But
and
yeah,
toes. Really,
absolutely an invaluable tool for me. As many chicks as like right now.
yeah.
I'm like a month into my breeding season, and I've got just off the top of my head, without really even thinking about it, I've got one, two, three, four, five, six. I got like 25 chicks. I mean, already. So it's very easy to lose track of who's who in the zoo if you don't have a system.
Absolutely, and especially if you have a mixed aviary and some of those birds are breeding out in your aviary, right? So it's
Hmm.
that can get a little bit more confusing too. And there's still no guarantee in genetics when you have multiple birds breeding together, but you usually can pinpoint at least the parents that are feeding the chicks. There's just no guarantee that maybe the egg that
They
was
might,
laid was from
yeah.
that hen, but or
And I've had
from
like
that male. So,
older babies feeding their younger siblings. Like that doesn't, yeah,
uh-huh. Yeah,
it doesn't
absolutely.
necessarily guarantee you anything. Yeah, and so
Yep.
before we go, I got a funny story here. So when I was a kid, we bred feeder mice, not to feed anything. We just had pet mice, but they're all albino, right? So how do you tell them apart? So we did a version of this, right? We took different color Sharpies and put rings on their tail that
Okay.
doesn't have hair. And they would start to wear off. So like every couple of weeks, I'm sure it was not good for them, but I guess they don't really live long enough to have long-term medical problems. But every couple of weeks, I'd have to catch them out and touch up the tail rings to keep track of who was who.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, where can they find you on social media, Chris, if they have a question
Yep.
about bird bands or something else?
Yeah, it's Bird Nerd All Things. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, we're Bird Nerd. Instagram is Bird Nerd 4. YouTube, Facebook is just Bird Nerd. And I've got websites out there, littlebirdnerd.com, where we have a lot of the Bird Brains merch that you guys can go and check out. I try to stay up to date. I don't post as much as you do, Jay, on Instagram. I need to get better at that, more consistent. But I do try to go on, if not every few days, and answer questions and comments on YouTube and from the videos and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where you guys can reach me the best. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, so the Javiary, so it's either the underscore Javiary, which is Jayviary, or just the Javiary with no underscore. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, uh, Reddit, Thread sucks. Um, and we're on Spotify also. So if you're watching this, you're
Yes.
thinking, man, I wish I was on Spotify. We are on Spotify, and I'm doing a better job of keeping that all up to date. Um,
Yeah, and go watch those videos as much as you can too. So keep that support
yeah,
coming there.
we both have, I'll say this too, we both have a ton of videos about all things finch keeping, DIY projects, how to build cages. We've probably answered your question. And if we
Yeah.
haven't, let us know because we'd love to talk about that. All right, if you made it to the end here, we're gonna do a giveaway. All
Yeah.
right, the first two people that comment and say that all you have to say is you made it to the end. I have two woven finch nests from Hagen, Living World woven finch nests. I will
Nice.
send one to each of you. They're nice enough to sponsor me, and they sent me some nests. So I thought that's a great giveaway item. I've got like 80 going right now. So if you're listening and you want a finch nest and you got to the end, just comment that you made it to this point in the podcast. First two people get the first two nests.
I love it. Heck yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Can
we're
I
giving
can I
away.
comment? Can I
You
comment?
may not.
I wanna
You are
know.
not
Okay.
eligible.
All right, fine.
Uh,
Okay, sounds good, man.
but yeah. All right. Well, we'll catch y'all on the next one. And thanks for listening. Cheers, y'all.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you.